There is a question. Do you need a dropper on a gravel bike? For me, the answer is simple. No, you don't. It's like even cross-country guys are not really convinced. So why on earth would anyone want a dropper on a gravel bike? Let me introduce myself. A small disclaimer. I'm not an expert on gravel bikes or droppers. I'm just another bike enthusiast. Everything I'll say here should be taken with a grain of salt. Do your own research. Maybe even buy a dropper and try it out. Who knows? It may work out for you differently. The point of this video is to share my thoughts and experience. Couple of words about my bike. My gravel ride is kind of different, unconventional, weird. I consider that a gravel bike. I've built it around 650B carbon mounted bike frame. It has 2.0-inch wide tires and I'm using cheap Chinese dropper with 150 mils of travel. And that's a lot of travel for a gravel bike, I would say. There is a lot of talks about how those new Shimano GRX shifters are able to work with a dropper when used in a one-by setup. And SRAM had something for a really long time, so it got me thinking, maybe there is something to it. Maybe I'm missing something. So I decided to try it out. I've been using my dropper for about 4 months now. On average, I'm riding, let's say, 70 kilometers a week. To be honest with you, I wanted to get rid of this thing after a third ride. There is nothing wrong with the dropper itself. It works fine. I just don't like it on my bike. The cons are huge. So, what are the cons of a dropper? The obvious one is the weight. That's really an old argument about a dropper, isn't it? It weighs more. That's bad. Moving on. This dropper has replaced my carbon seat post, and a carbon seat post is somewhat compliant, so it is able to flex on a rough terrain. I've immediately noticed difference in comfort. There is a significant difference. The carbon seat post is just so much more comfortable. I would say the comfort and the weight are really key points here, and lack of comfort is the most important one for me. I wouldn't want a dropper even if there wasn't any weight penalty. Next, it is just one more thing to maintain and one more thing that could fail during a ride. The nicest thing about gravel bikes is the simplicity. No front suspension, no rear suspension. Oftentimes it's a one-by, so no front derailleur. It is so nice. We should try to keep it that way, shouldn't we? Next, it is one more thing to think about during a ride. When I'm riding my gravel bike really fast over a technical section, I have to focus all my attention on a trail. I'm super concentrated. Everything is happening really fast, and you gotta pick the right lines quickly, and there is no room for an error. There is no suspension to save you. You are much more involved in a ride. Easy and boring MTB trails are exciting and challenging for a gravel bike. So getting your saddle up and down quickly in this environment may become overwhelming. It is just like juggling with too many balls in the air. On the other hand, a dropper would be more suitable on short local rides. When you are riding your favorite trail and know every bump, curve, rock, and route, you are able to handle your dropper better. You know beforehand how dangerous and technical the next descent is. You know exactly how low you want your saddle on each particular section because you are riding it for 20th time. That's why dropper can potentially be more beneficial for a cyclocross course. You're riding the same course over and over and you know it very well. It is very important to use dropper only when it's necessary. Using it in a wrong section will waste your energy and slow you down. My favorite local trail is 15 kilometers long one way. It is a single track in a forest. It has some more or less technical descents. I've tested my dropper a lot on this trail. I can feel I'm straining my legs much more using it, and it adds up even on this short trail, and I'm much more tired afterwards. and I really can't tell if I'm any faster. I don't feel any faster at all. On a gravel bike, you are limited by skinny tires and lack of suspension. If you want to go faster, you need a wider tire. The tire choice is everything. So far, I tried 40 mils tire, 2.0-inch tire, and 2.2-inch tire. And 2.2-inch tire is the fastest over a rough terrain. And of course, it is the slowest one on a tarmac. So using a dropper will put additional strain on your legs. It may not be a problem on a short ride, especially if you are using your bike for an exercise, but it is not what gravel bikes are about. Gravel bikes are about long rides, 18 miles. You don't want any additional strain on your legs. Your legs need to last this long ride. And if it's a long ride, your bike is better be comfortable. What you can survive for an hour may feel completely different after 10 hours. Also, you would probably be carrying a lot of stuff with you, and adding more weight is the last thing you need. I have found an interesting benefit of using a dropper on a gravel bike. If you feel that you are straining your lower back too much on a rough terrain, a dropper may help you with that. Sometimes, over some really rough sections, it feels like I'm starting to hit my saddle too often and I'm straining my lower back too hard. I may want to get my saddle a little bit lower. It wouldn't really make me any faster, it would just transfer some work from my lower back to my legs. Let me explain. When I'm lowering my saddle, I'm making myself more upright, and more upright position is going to be less strenuous on your lower back just by itself, but you would also have more travel between you and your saddle, allowing you to bend your legs more to negotiate bumps. So, with your saddle quite high on a really hard bump, you would hit your saddle too early, exhausting all your legs travel, and to soften the blow further, you would have to bend your back. But with your saddle lowered, your legs can take almost all the work, and on some smaller bumps, you would not need to bend your back at all. This is not really going to work for a long ride though. The increase of work your legs needs to do is just drastic. When you are riding on a tarmac, you want your saddle quite high for optimal efficiency and power, and when you are riding on a rough terrain, you want your saddle a bit lower so the bike can move around under you. On a really rough terrain, you are spending a lot of time out of the saddle, hovering over it. For me, the difference in saddle height between tarmac and gravel is no more than 2 centimeters. On a tarmac, your saddle goes up, on a rough terrain down. A dropper is somewhat useful here, but it is not that simple because you will also need different tire pressure. If you are on a tarmac and you have low tire pressure, it doesn't matter that you can get your saddle higher, you would still have squishy tires. Those tires would hate you on a tarmac. And if you have optimal tire pressure for tarmac and you would find yourself on a bumpy section, it wouldn't really matter that you can lower your saddle. You have less grip, much less control, and much less comfort. You would have to slow down. So, you would have to choose beforehand. Either you are setting your bike for rough or smooth trails, and you can set your saddle height accordingly. A dropper may not be needed. And personally, I would make one perfect setup and would stick with it because when you are changing something on your bike, you are affecting a lot of stuff and it would handle differently than before. So you would have to get used to this new setup. There is a muscle memory. If you are lowering your saddle on a fly, it would be in a slightly different position each time. That would upset your overall bike feel. I just don't like that inconsistency. Let's talk about your saddle roll in a gravel bike handling and why you wouldn't want it too low or out of the way completely. On an MTB with a flat bar, you have a really nice grip and leverage. You don't care about your saddle. You can ride without it and it would feel really stable. But on a drop bike, it is a whole different story. I have a nice test for you. You can try to ride your drop bar bike without a saddle. Just remove your seat post and see how your bike would feel like. It is super weird. Get to some speed and try to shift your weight around, try to turn, um, try both hoods and drops. You would be amazed how much less stable your bike feels without a saddle. And you would have to grip your handlebars really tight to stop your bike from rocking and wobbling. It is a very nice test to understand how useful a dropper really is on a drop bar bike. Let's assume you are trying to descend a technical trail as fast as you can. You have decided to get your saddle out of the way, so you are not connected to it in a meaningful way anymore. You have just lost one point of contact with your bike, and you will have to compensate it elsewhere. You will have to grip your handlebars really tight, and gripping your handlebars really tight on your rigid bike over a rough terrain is a bad idea. The tighter you squeeze your handlebars, the more trail chatter is transferred to your hands. You would want to do the opposite. You would want a nice relaxed grip. You would be much more comfortable and much less prone of locking your steering. The bottom line is with a relaxed grip on your handlebars, it is necessary to feel the saddle between your legs. You can press it against your left or right inner thigh. This way, you will make the bike stable, preventing it from wobbling and rocking too much, and you will have better overall control. On a drop bar bike, you can choose to descend either in drops or on hoods. If you are setting your bike for descending in drops, it would compromise your riding position on hoods and vice versa. You cannot have 100% perfect position for both. My bike setup is all about riding on hoods. I spend 99% of the time there. I never using drops for descending. My drops mostly for climbs and powerful accelerations. I've noticed that when descending on hoods, you are absolutely need to feel your saddle between your legs. You can get it a little bit lower, but not too much. You don't have firm enough grip on hoods to sufficiently control your bike with your saddle too low. There is a special setup for riding the most rugged trails on a drop bar bike. You would need to use drops all the time, so you would have to change your current setup completely. First, you would have to tilt your bars all the way down to have a really secure grip. Hoods are getting down too. You would need those brake levers closer to the drops. You would have to raise your bars quite a bit. You would want a different handlebars, really flared ones or just really wide ones. Then a shorter stem, of course. Then you would need to lower your saddle, and you would have to grip your handlebars really tight, and all the road chatter will get transferred to your hands. It would not be a pleasant ride. If you are setting your bike this way, it will destroy your position in hoods. You can forget about your hoods at this moment. I think the dropper would be most appropriate for this setup. Surprisingly, a lot of people are setting their bikes that way. And if you want to do it, that is your choice. I have to know I don't like that setup, and it's definitely not optimal for long rides. Okay, that's all I have for now. Cheers!